group with my counselors, or I am teaching principals, or I am teaching some kids at DAAP, or I am teaching a group of parents, I still want to do that attention signal. So the thing about the counselors that we are, let's not forget those things that made us great and get to that next level where you are. And some of you are on another level. And so let's not forget those things. And we're going to go back in the past a little bit and think about those times we were in the classroom. Think about that history. What about that story this morning? Was that amazing or what? It's amazing. I am Dr. Tyra Hodge. I am the SEL coordinator and PBIS coordinator for Cleveland ISD. I am also a counselor intern, a drug counselor, and whatever else my kids need me to do. So today we're going to talk about these things that get in the way. And so before I go through the presentation, I just want to give you a little bit of history about me. You know my title. We heard the story this morning. We know the stories of the students that have been sitting in front of us all year. And some of them are absolutely insane. I happen to live in an area where, we have one half of our district is 90% or 85%, Miss Youngblood, ED students. So those are a lot of newcomers. I like Tony Robbins. You can read for yourself. Some things I'm going to ask you to read with me. So my story is, first let me ask you this. In your groups, I didn't even teach you my attention signal, did you? When I say Hodge, you say class. Now let's practice. Hodge, class. Hodges, class. Hodges, class. Okay. So, and the reason why you still, even at your level, and when you're training your campus on things, the reason why you want an attention signal that demands a response is because we don't know if there is a crisis. We need to be able to get people's attention and quickly. And so when I see teachers, I do monitor a lot of teachers and help them with classroom management. That is my superpower. I worked in behavior for 10 years, 10 of my 17 years as a behavior teacher, behavior interventionist, behavior specialist. And so this SEL coordinator is just a little bit different. It's just all the behaviors mixed all up and together. So that attention signal, and if you see a teacher that their classroom is this all, and they're doing the countdown at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that really doesn't even work with their own kids at home, okay? Because they're still running around, And so I need you to command back to me, because if I say, hey, this is a real lockdown, I've gotten your attention. Hodges, class. Hodges, class. And so when somebody else walks in and they see you doing it that's new to the group, they catch on quickly. So I don't have to do a whole new reteach until I get some more, more than just a couple kids that come in. And so let me ask you this question, and I want you to talk to your group. I want you to talk about your favorite teacher in your teacher's name in elementary school. Go. Hodges, job, especially over here on this side. I really like them. So, in your groups, how many had somebody in their group that could not remember an elementary teacher? That's one, two. Was it just one or was it two? Just one? Three. So both of y'all. Okay, see that is very uncommon. I cannot remember an elementary teacher, a principal's name, or anything. And so let me explain why. The dynamics. I was being adopted by a white man. We're talking early 70s, up in Virginia, that was marrying a black woman in a school that was all white. About how long after segregation really kicked in and was really going. So my first experience to elementary, kindergarten, you know, everybody's happy to go to kindergarten. I remember within those first couple of weeks, never really had communication with my teacher. And the little girl next to me was drawing a picture. And she asked the teacher was so beautiful. She was blonde hair, blue eyes. And she asked the teacher, is my picture pretty? And the teacher was like, yes, your picture is so pretty. And so I wanted my picture to be pretty too. So I drew my picture. And I made sure the next time the teacher made around by me, and she was good about percentage control. She was walking around and monitoring her class and did a good job. I said, is my picture pretty? She said, no. It's ugly. And kept walking. So that's my kindergarten experience. So we talked about all the different things that people go through, and what I find about people that don't remember teachers in elementary, it's usually for a reason. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So, as I go into first and second grade, and let me go ahead and tell you, I was held back 2 times in elementary school. Technically 3 times, because my mom fought the 3rd time because I would have been like 35 graduating. So, my dad was an abusive alcoholic. He worked for NASA. Not NASA, I mean the Pentagon. Arlington, Virginia is about 15 minutes from Washington, D.C. And we had all kinds of crazy stuff that you'll have to read that book when it comes out. But anyway, all kinds of crazy stuff. But one night he was up with me, playing with me. And sometimes he was a really fun dad. But he had fell back in the chair, and his eyes rolled back, and he had an aneurysm, and he died. And I tried to wake him. Dad, quit playing. Dad, wake up. And so when I realized that he wasn't going to wake up, I went and got my mom, and sure enough, he had died. So let's fast forward. When I was in school, I didn't do anything. I mean, after kindergarten experience, I wasn't working for anything. And this is the thing. Nobody called my mom to say anything. Nobody called me in to talk to me and say, hey, what's going on with these grades or what's going on. Nobody. They let me fail. They were going to do it 3 times. And so, when we think about responsive services, somebody read the purpose of responsive services. Y'all know the continuum, so I'm not going to go through the continuum, but I'm highlighting responsive services and why it's so important. What's someone say? Thank you, please.
The purpose of responsive services is to intervene on behalf of students whose immediate personal concerns are social development at risk. Based on the level of need, responsive services may be preventative, remedial, or
It's blurry. I took this straight out of the comprehensive counseling guide for Texas. That's just a picture I just took out of there. So some of the things that we pulled in, and so I want you to go ahead with your table real quick and diagnose Dr. Tyra Hodge, because everybody already knows she was crazy a little bit. And so go ahead and diagnose some of the things that should have been done as far as being responsive to somebody, one, that had already been retained, two, that wasn't learning. So talk to your table, go. Hodges, class. Ooh, I can feel it right here. Feel it. Okay, so we're gonna talk about what you talked about in a minute as a table. You're gonna pick the person that's sitting at 1 o'clock at the table. You're gonna go first. You're gonna tell us what your group talked about. But I want to go back to our friends, if you're willing to share why you don't remember any teacher's name in the elementary, because it's very uncommon. So if you're willing to share, please. Anybody. I don't want to put you on the spot unless you want to.
So it's a question that it's asked in a lot of PD, like over 15 years of education, and I've always been like, why don't I remember anybody? And I think I was getting all of my needs met at home. And so I went to school just to learn. Like I didn't need anything from anyone. This is all speculative because I have no idea why I don't remember anyone. I don't remember anyone from high school either. Like no one stands out to me. I'm like, oh.
Okay. We're going to talk about why kids go to school to learn, too. I mean, why they go to school.
With my family, my mom was married 3 times. I went to 4 different elementary schools. So it was kind of like, I just lived and survived. Just go, okay, I'm going here today? Okay. I went to one school, started in September, moved to California in December, stayed there a year and a half in California for all of 5th, rest of 4th, all of 5th. And then, so I thought, I'd have the full, elementary,
Right.
experience.
Right. Okay, so that's very common too. Okay, we're going to start up here. Go ahead and diagnose crazy Dr. Hodge. What kind of responsible services maybe should I have gotten? 1 o'clock.
So we just said that the student definitely should have had a counseling time. Parents should have been advised, maybe a push towards a career, and help the student shape their life.
Very good, very good. What you got over here, 1 o'clock?
We just similar set of absolutely some counseling, lots of trauma prior to being adopted, just being in the room when your dad passed away, things like that. So lots of unmet needs going to school.
All right, one more 1 o'clock. I'm not going to put you on the spot. One more 1 o'clock.
We said about, they failed the student because they have parent conferences. They only have parent conference towards the end, just to get the student knowing you're failing instead of doing it before. And also admin, not only the teacher failed the student, but also admin, because admin didn't make the teachers accountable for that student. So it was all around the school.
I'm in the room with professionals. Okay, responsive services. So at that tier 1 level, all students are getting school counseling if they need it. They're getting, if you're elementary, you're doing a lot of guidance lessons. Middle school gets harder, but you're trying to do some type of preventative stuff. The best you can. High school, we're trying to, do it during one of those, not 40-45, but what help me, Ms. Youngblood, she's one of my favorite counselors in the whole world. With that little intervention time that we have, that's not 45.
It's 45.
Not 45, but that other one. Block intervention. We really
provide equitable access to school counseling services through the comprehensive school counseling program. The purpose of the responsive services component is to intervene on behalf of those students whose immediate personal circumstances, concerns, or problems interfere with their healthy personal, social, educational, and career development.
Okay, so now, the question are, what are some of the key words that are sometimes overlooked by school counselors, principals, and teachers that are in that? I'm gonna come to the 1 o'clocks back here. 1 o'clock's back, any 1 o'clocks back here can answer. What are some of the key things? Intervene, yes. Y'all can help your 1 o'clock out, help her out.
I'm not sure about 1 o'clock, but for me, that word equitable jumps out.
Equitable, okay, what made that look like?
Because it's not one, the model shouldn't be one size fits all. Every kid should be given what they need to be successful.
Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. And so, which I didn't find out until I was an adult, was that I was dyslexic. Okay, so back in the back, our person that was actually an excellent student, she told us what she came to school for. Now, with our population in Cleveland, and with your population and how things changed after COVID, why do some of our students come to school? So we already had one answer from the back of the room, it was to learn, ma'am. To get meals. Just a couple of weeks ago, for years I've been working on and off with, often at the AEP. He was under influence. We had to call EMT to come get him. And he was like, I robbed the store and he had candy falling on the floor. Like, so you robbed the store for candy? I said, let's change that word. You stole from the store. And so what he had disclosed to me was that it was his turn to steal from the store. This is a 16-year-old. It was his turn to steal from the store because there wasn't any food at home. Okay? And so with me, I'm gonna check everything out. I've learned I don't, and so I did a pop-up home visit. The only thing that was in that house to eat was a can of red beans. There was nothing in the refrigerator, completely empty. There was nothing in the freezer. So of course, did what I do. You did my job, but also did what was right in my heart, is make sure that we filled that house with so much food the next day. Just pulled the resources in. So when I got there, he was suspended for being intoxicated on campus. And so he was there. We brought in the food, and he started crying. This is a 16-year-old boy. He started crying. He grabbed my neck, and he said, today was my little brother's turn to steal. And I really don't want him stealing because I don't want him in trouble, but it was his turn to steal to feed him. And so he was happy that he didn't have to do that. So some come to get that meal. Anybody else? Let's see it here from a 4 o'clock. A 4 o'clock, why do some students come to school?
Socialization.
Socialization, yes. That's where all their friends at. That's where they get to sell their drugs sometimes. Any more number 4s?
I have some just say they have to come to school because otherwise they'll file on them because they're serious. But most of it because they know they're gonna get filed on if they don't come to school.
So to piggyback from that, in our school, we have a lot of immigrants. So they're afraid of police officers, and they're afraid that Homeland Security is gonna go to their house if their kids don't come to school. So they also go to school for that because they're afraid for their status in here.
I forgot to tell you that young man's house that we visited that day was all shot up with bullets from 2 nights before. So why was he at school? And so we heard this morning from our presenter while she was at school. Good job, y'all. Good job. So this is the thing. To be a teacher, you got to be highly qualified. So your first year counselor, let me tell you, this is my first year in this role, in this job, and let me tell you, as a first year district, well, I've been district administrator before in another district, but the first year being the SEL coordinator and PBIS coordinator, I wasn't highly qualified. And so what I mean by that is that we have these people coming in and the state has said they're highly qualified. And no, they're just getting their feet wet, they're just learning. And so you as the expert counselor, there you are again as that buffer. Because them kids is driving her crazy and she don't know what to do. And so although you do not evaluate, you go sometimes to investigate why your child is acting a fool, right? And so our highly qualified may be brand new and just don't know. And that's the great thing about being a counselor. You've already been there and you've proven yourself to leadership. Y'all are, in the hierarchy, y'all are up there in the hierarchy, right? That your contract says administrator, right? Right? Okay, so don't think that you're overstepping when someone needs your help. Okay? So that's a part of that responsive services, not just helping that student, but possibly helping that teacher with a little bit. And if you can't, you're too busy, then you get that coach involved. Sometimes you have to be that person. Okay, preventative services. May I please have a reader?
At the prevention level, students engage with school counselors and receive counseling prior to issues becoming chronic and problematic. These are routinely provided services whereby a student receives support for the development or enhancement of foundational skills. The school counselor works with students who are on the verge of choosing an unhealthy or inappropriate solution to their problems. Through preventative activities, a school counselor works to remove barriers that may interfere with the student's educational, career, personal, and social development.
Okay, so now what you're going to do, you're going to go back to your group. 6 o'clock is going to prevent, but as a group, y'all are going to give her the information. If somebody's going to document information, you're going to go ahead and fix Dr. Hodge again, okay? The second grade, for the second time, Dr. Hodge. And then y'all are going to, 6 o'clock is going to present. I want everybody to be able to, every group to be able to share what they came up with. As far as, this is the first in that, the first part of that responsive services, okay? So do what you do. Where's that? The second. Go.
I need a combination.
Tier 1. Because if you already saw, first you would probably back up to where you saw that first report card or that first 3 weeks, maybe monitoring after it, what do you call it, the progress report. Hodges, class. Beautiful. Do y'all need more time or you good? Okay, 6 o'clock. Let's start in the back, please. What did y'all get?
We talked about having like a meeting with the teachers to let them know the situation that happened, where prepared to make accommodations for the students, and maybe like scheduling weekly sessions with the students so they can check in throughout the year.
Beautiful, beautiful. Anybody that's not really in a kind of weird shaped group? Yes, ma'am.
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
I heard someone say, maybe as we're meeting with the teacher and the parent, have maybe the student go into RTI or try to see if the student could get the evaluation to see if 504 accommodation needs to be implemented. Maybe there's social or emotional something going on, or there's behavior going on, have possibly a bit.
Right,
Because it needs.
you found out later.
That you were just like.
I just thought I was stupid. 6 o'clock.
Yeah, so we talked about teaching SEL skills, such as resilience. Also meeting with parents, anything that they might need, and explaining the situation and what you were going through. Yeah, and then we also talked about setting goals, long goals, instead of day by day. So goals for the future. So we will see it doing that.
I'm just gonna steal all that and go back and tell my counselors to do that with their teachers. Come on, Miss Youngblood, make me look good.
So we talked about 504. Talked about with the parents. We talked about I even said maybe GT. Never know.
You never know.
Because some of my GT kids I have are off the wall.
It's true. It's true. I found one of those. I won't tell that story today, but I did find one of those.
Yeah, see,
They used to
so-
hide under their table and cry. Ended up being GT.
See?
I also have something to say about GT.
A GT?
A lot of my kids that came from junior high as a GT got burnt out, and now they're third time or another. So sometimes we miss a little.
Right.
Now, who's on the 6 o'clock? You look like who got who's your 6 o'clock? Okay.
We talked about the 504 and the teacher, providing resources and that, we could have, or they could have, maybe people outside their reach.
Okay.
So you could deal with the father and actually witness it. It's two different levels. So, it's just making sure that there's a system and keeping up with where you are and where you're.
Okay. Y'all are fixing me already. I'm gonna get another PhD.
So we talked about like academically, progress monitoring, regularly monitoring the students' data, having them refer to RCI, to tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, individual counseling, maybe some outside therapy, referrals, tutorials to help the student get caught up, but also like supporting the relationship between the teacher, the student, and the family or the parent, regular communication, home, required parent conferences, at least one per semester, and regular check-ins with the counselor.
Man, this whole group. Why don't y'all know I'm hiring?
She pretty much said everything.
Well, the thing is that I'm hearing the same thing. There might be some little extra stuff that you're considering, but do you see how it's taken a group to come together and to debrief about this child, not just making snap decisions And because y'all came as a group, y'all are coming up with some of the same systems and the process.
I was gonna add that because in our district, we also do the class schedules and elementary level. One thing being that was a new student to the campus would be a good idea to check what the records say from the previous school. You know, call and see, hey, were you guys experiencing the same behaviors? Did you have any academic concerns? That way, at our school, we can say, okay, well, definitely something major has happened that was seen through this type of thing.
Wow. And see, it wasn't a behavior problem because what I didn't tell you, my mom eventually became a cop and she had a gun belt. Y'all have a
Same kind of thing, we work on like MTS, MTSS, or collaborative, getting together with all the other teachers to see what was going on.
Okay. Very good, y'all. Y'all make this fun. Then, okay, what are you doing this? Y'all just told me that. I'm a little ahead of the thing. That means I actually was learning my PowerPoint. Okay, remedial services. Will somebody read from before?
Remediation is a necessary school counselor response once a situation is taking place and an intervention is necessary to assist the student in resolving the problem. This is a median or intermediate approach to interventions which are consistent with students who have already made unwise choices or have not coped well with problem situations. During this approach, school counselors take a closer look at precipitating and antecedent factors. What changes or plans need to be made, reflect upon what went well during the process, and often follow up with the student who needed a particular intervention. Interventions are developed to assist students who are not coping well with problem situations or have made unwise choices.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I'm going to pull out the main points in this. Precipitating, I call them precipitating factors and antecedent behaviors. I'm pulling that out of this because this is one that gets overlooked when we're developing that comprehensive school counseling plan. I love her. She helps me so much. Precipitating factors. And so I'm going to show you a short video. Now, let me warn you, because I don't want to do what I did to somebody else. I used to teach a lot of CPI. And so you're about to see a car crash. And so if you had any issues or trauma relating to car crashes, you may leave the room for a second. This is from the movie Disturbia.
Truck right now.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding.
Yeah, are you sure you two aren't stopping off and buying a fish like you did last time?
Right. Are we gonna stop off and buy fish like the last time? No, Mom, come on, we gotta get you savvy for that. Look at this guy. Come on, jackass. Hey. No, not your mom. I'm sorry, Mom.
Hey, Dad, you should have seen him today.
Got enough fish for a week.
How long do you think you'll be?
I don't know, about an hour?
Are you okay? Get him!
Okay, so father does die. My goal is never to traumatize my students or re-traumatize them. Okay, so a precipitating factor is anything that happens to a child that we don't know about before before they get to school. A precipitating factor can happen at school, something that we may know that we may not know about. A precipitating factor may be something we can intervene in, or it may not be something we can intervene in, and therefore we put some processes in place at school. Okay, so go ahead and discuss. Let's see, we got 6 o'clock. Okay, so 8 or 9 o'clock, y'all are gonna present. Let's talk about precipitating factors. Start listing off some things that we cannot control that happens. Hurricane Harvey. Go. Comprehensive school counseling. How come I've been saying that to you for like, I can't, when I get in front of people and I can't say Okay, let's start on this side. So we said 8, 9 o'clock. What you got?
Weather, COVID,
COVID, yeah.
tornadoes, family loss, divorce, separation.
Yes, ma'am. This case.
Whether, natural disasters, loss of income,
Oh, yeah.
job, she said the loss of a family member. Maybe the father or mother abuses, so that's probably our control, household that.
Yeah, it'll control a lot of things.
We said, whether death, abuse, divorce, things like that.
What about here?
We said social events, weather, family dynamics.
From here.
Okay, same thing, you said abuse, weather, divorce, house fire. Oh, okay, yeah, so, loss of family. Loss of family.
I mean, what did y'all come up with?
Together, like put together a car and then get that. That's gonna impact them.
Oh, yeah, anybody back along?
Molestation, rape, sex trafficking.
And so we deal with that, I mean, we deal with that so much, especially when we talk about our ED kids coming into, from wherever they're coming from, because they're not just coming from Mexico, which is kind of a myth. They're coming from all over, and they're coming with stuff. And when you're at the high school, it starts coming out a lot more. They'll start to speak about, my dad was raping me forever. He got deported to Mexico. My uncle, my friend got me drunk and I passed out and she let everybody do this to me. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. So, antecedent. So most of the time, this is in your Texas Comprehensive School Counseling Guide. But a lot of times, when you hear the word antecedent, being I'm still a behavior specialist at heart, but they're the ones that usually use those words. Your LSSPs, your DIAGs, the counselors, we got to get that in our tool belt, because we're trying to figure out why the student is acting out. Thinking these are just a few of the antecedents. This was in the guide, but I just kind of changed them up a little bit. So we wonder why we think that they should know better. That's a myth, right? When we talk about brain development, the child's brain, and we heard today, I had always said 25, but now we know that boys will grow to 28. Okay, so we're talking about antecedents now. So it's been sent to you now sent to you by the principal. And so now let's look at the antecedent. That you were tasked to find out. We're going back to Disturbia. Okay. Is it on?
So, Kel, think you could stay conscious long enough to tell us your plans? for
Same boy in the accident.
months ahead?
Este Verano. Este verano voy okay.
¿Usted qué va a hacer?
I don't know what you just said. I didn't read that far in the book.
Did you do the homework or not?
Guess not.
Guess not. I don't know who you think you are, or who you think you're dealing with. You can't give me a straight answer? Fine. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't fail you, right now.
So now we have this young man. So now we have a young man that's now sitting in court because of a precipitating factor. What was the antecedent? Do we understand? Do y'all understand what the antecedent is? Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's that behavior that happens, or that is that thing that happens right before the behavior. What was the? I want y'all to go with your group. Go with your group. And I want you to talk about the different antecedents that could have caused behaviors, not just that last one about the dad, but there was so much wrong in that classroom. Me and that teacher would have had an issue, right? Talk to your group. Go.
Just easy to find stuff and it's like separate clips instead of one clip.
And so, with that, with your teachers, and when you're teaching your teachers attention signals, that goes across safe and civil school, 7 steps, fundamental 5, everything is going to bring you back to teaching that attention signal. Although they struggle with it in the beginning, when it really counts, and down the road, those kids, they start responding, and they also feel that culture. They start to feel a culture, hey, we do this together. Okay, so this is going to be a free-for-all, so anybody may share their thoughts, because this was an emotional 2 clicks. Do you have something to say? We are talking about the antecedent. Yes, ma'am.
I think everything was an antecedent. From him trying to avoid being something thrown at you, waking up out of your sleep by being shocked, then being put on the spot to stand up, being grilled in front of your peers, being embarrassed in front of your peers, and the proximity closing in, getting into your personal space, and then that final push, what would your father think? Everything was.
Do you think Mr. Gutierrez knew about the father?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did, because he said, what would your father do? He absolutely knew.
But my thing is, you know, what kind of relationship that they have, like, I'm not even comfortable with you making that comment about my father, so, you know, you don't even know, he might not even have a relationship with the student.
Right.
So you can make that comment. But I just think the situation should have been avoided totally. Honestly, I would have left him alone. And once class was over and the students, all the other students were, I would have gone to him, but in a much different way. Like, hey, I noticed you've been sleeping with somebody, whatever you want to kind of talk about what's going on. But yeah, all of it was.
No, it is a good practice to try to wake the student. So it's okay to try to wake them. What you got to say?
I was gonna say, like, someone I really noticed was like kind of like how he almost was attacking masculinity a little bit. Like he almost was swearing up on him.
Yeah, he kind of did.
He didn't give me like I deserve a straight answer. Like, and it was like this kind of that era, like you're attacking my masculinity, so now I'm punching you in the face because you're not going to call me, you're not going to emasculate me in front of you.
Right.
So I'm gonna show who I am right now.
Okay, so I'm going to go a step further. He just said something about masculine. You know, what do we know about our kids right now that have two parents working and that are taking care of their families? You know, at 5, 6, 7 years old, and you gonna tell me what to do? I'm taking care of my own house. You know, I'm running the house. While my parents are working, while my mom is at work, or while my dad is at work, because my mom ain't in the picture. Who else has something to say about that?
I was just gonna say that whole interaction was inappropriate on the adult's behalf. He was taking him sleeping during his lesson personally, and sometimes it's just, and I know when I was in the classroom, it's about your approach, how you approach a kid. There's a big difference between saying, hey, get up while you're not working, and saying, sweetheart, what do you need in order to get started? There's a big difference, just the effort you take to get into the kid. And I was that kid that sat in class, and I just flew under the radar because I didn't say anything, and nobody knew for years the things that I was experiencing at home. And so you have to get to know your kids, and you have to make sure that your approach is right so that kids will open up to you. And sometimes they'll lay the problem out for you if they feel like your heart is in the right place when you ask.
Do you think anybody, because when something like that happens, if I am like, if Esther's on the phone right here and I'm presenting in the classroom and she's sitting there texting and I go take her phone,
yeah, fight or flight.
Right? So not just the fight or flight that I just took her phone from her in front of the class. Alliances have been drawn in that classroom. Half of this class, some are going to be scared and they're going to put their phone up, right? But then some are going to be like,
you're wrong. You're wrong.
Right?
When you
but then you're still going to have some people that were like, well, she shouldn't have had her phone out. I would have got in trouble if my phone was out. Alliances are drawn. And so, not just that, no one will ever be able to trust that teacher again.
Yeah.
Ever. So, go ahead. Who was saying something?
Oh, it was me. I was just saying that I think that when you put any person's back up against the wall, they come out swinging, and we forget that includes kids. It's just a natural reaction.
And I think with that, it was more of a control thing instead of trying to figure out where that kids are.
And so, how many students are sitting in our office right now because of a power control? I do a whole nother training on rational detachment. So with this precipitating factors and antecedents, when your LSSP gets involved or your diet gets involved, But this is something that you need to look at as well. You have that antecedent behavior consequence, right? So that consequence is not necessarily, oh, the kid went to jail, and it's not necessarily that. It's the behavior that happens right after. Outside of going to jail for that kid, what were some of the other consequences of that behavior? Yeah.
So you have to start out doing your routine in another school. Start all over again. Because a few people that you probably got close to, now you have to change everything just because of
That's a consequence. That's a consequence. He's going to be labeled as a behavior problem. And also, guess what? He got out of that work. So the consequence isn't always just what you received. It's also what you're getting away with. Anytime there's a behavior, it's always to either gain something or to avoid, right? So sometimes the consequence doesn't look like it. Now there's good consequences for good behavior, right? We get paychecks. That's our consequence. Our antecedents, we go to work. Behavior, we do it right, yes ma'am.
I was gonna say, like with our kids, a lot of our students are always sleeping. So as a teacher, you really don't know why the student's sleeping. A lot of ours is because they've been working till 1, 2 in the morning to support their families. So the teacher went about that all way wrong. So, because you just don't know what the students are going through. And just take them outside and talk to them privately or else. I had one teacher that couldn't handle one of my students that dressed in a skirt that was a boy, so he sent him to me. So I had to explain to the teacher that was fine, but you need to talk to the student as well.
Yes. And so that's who you are. Now, in some cases, like with Mr. Gutierrez, as a counselor, this is actually just for my morbid curiosity. What would you have done if this was your kid? Yes, ma'am.
If I was the teacher, I would probably contact the parent and see what's going on, part of building the relationship and, finding out what's going on there.
Tell me what you would have done as a counselor.
As a counselor, if the teacher would have come to me, I would have spoken to the parent because I think I'm not a parent, but most parents, they don't want, when they hear the word counselor, they think admin, and that just raises like some sort of flag. But when it comes from the teacher first, that kind of, like, hey, he's having a hard time. Would you mind if I talk to the counselor for some help? And then that's when we step in and reach out as well.
Okay.
As the counselor, not the administrator, I would try to talk to the student to see where he was emotionally to have him have that reaction. As a counselor, I would have also spoke with the teacher, but when it came to the consequences, I would direct my findings and offer those findings to the administrator.
Yes, because the admin definitely needed to know word for word what was done in that classroom. And then of course when you're writing your statement, you're gonna write out that I learned a long time ago, and I used it when I was principal, is that when I write up my write-ups with the student for a student, I do that. I do it antecedent behavior consequence. That's how I've been doing it for years. Well, the student was sleeping in class. Mr. Gutierrez threw a racer at, and then the boy stood up, and then Mr. Gutierrez said this, and then As a counselor, who else would have did something?
I had this happened last summer. I had a student that the teacher kept telling me she's sleeping in class, she's sleeping in, she can't come in here. So the teacher kept putting her off the class. And I would see her, they would say, oh, Miss Kelly, somebody is at your door. and it would be the same little girl. So I pulled her in one day and I was just asking her, I said, so why are you so tired? Well, she told me that she had witnessed her father OD. She was the one, she tried to wake him up, and she was not able to. And so now she said every time she closes her eyes, that's what she sees.
Ooh.
So she say, but when I get to school, for whatever reason, as soon as I sit down, I'm relaxed. But she said, and we called the mother, and she confirmed the story. And so, then I had to have a conversation with the teacher, and just letting her know, this child has gone through trauma, and it's not that she's just, the teacher was taking it personally, and she felt like, that's just disrespectful, and if I let her sleep, everybody's gonna think, that they can sleep. And so, eventually, the little girl said it was okay to share it with the teacher, so we all had a conference. And before the end of the year, they really got a good bond, made a good bond, but it was just the fact that, the teacher was taking it personally. My thing is just at least get to know or find out why the student, why is she sleeping.
And so if we're able or if we're fortunate enough to know what that precipitating factor was, and a teacher is still resistant on an accommodation, I usually just say, hey, JoJo, instead the one that is in the wheelchair, you're right. We should just push him out of that wheelchair. No, I've never said that before. Because he should be walking around just like everybody else, but I usually use a crutch. I usually say, you're right, we should just take that crutch away from him and make him walk just as fast as everybody and give him consequences based on that. And then I usually just sit there for a minute.
Sometimes you have to tell the teachers, like, give them, I don't tell them everything they have to do because sometimes they all but, we have one teacher that actually never feels, and I have to remind her and give her the example and let her process it, and then she'll come back and she's like, you know what, I understand what you're saying, but I'm like, but why do we have to keep doing this? Because you keep, I don't want to say agitating the student, but that's basically what she's doing. And I'm like, you know that this is an issue, you already, but there's no reason, and I said, I understand that, but at the end of the day, we know already what done happened, because we have gang activities and things like that, and they're middle school students. It's their life, so at the end of the day, we can't fix everything, but we can try, and I have to explain that to her, and I'm like, you're not the person to fix the kid. Refer them over. If they're doing something, let us know, and we'll go from there. But process it, and sometimes it takes them 2 or 3 days, but I'll give her examples, and I'm like, okay, because she doesn't have any kids, she really doesn't have any family to kind of go back to. So I have to give her the examples and like, okay, come back to me about 2 days on what else we can do to help this kid.
Sometimes we have to be that person because we're doing a threat assessment, and so everybody in here probably should be a part of the threat assessment team, right? And so we often ask during that threat assessment, who is the one adult that you can go to? And sometimes we have to look outside ourselves and be that person. How are we on time over here? I am Dr. Tara Hodge.